For as long as action cinema has existed, filmmakers have searched for ways to make danger look real. But in a surprising number of productions, the danger was real. Long before digital effects reshaped Hollywood, directors pushed their casts and crews into situations that blurred the line between staged spectacle and genuine peril. Instead of relying on crafted props or controlled pyrotechnics, some chose to ignite authentic explosives, fire actual ammunition, and unleash military-grade firepower directly onto their sets. These choices weren't made lightly, but they also weren't always made wisely. Limited budgets, a hunger for authenticity, or the belief that raw chaos could not be faked, led to decisions that modern safety teams would never permit. Actors found themselves performing with live blasts erupting at their backs. Stunt teams navigated environments that behaved more like active war zones than film locations, and camera operators filmed moments that could have ended very differently with the smallest mistake. The result? Scenes that feel shockingly vivid even decades later. Explosions that shake the earth, dust clouds rising like real combat, muzzle flashes that carry the unmistakable snap of live fire, and performances fueled by genuine adrenaline. But behind those unforgettable visuals lies a truth few moviegoers ever realized. Many of these moments were captured under conditions that placed lives at risk. In this episode, we look at 15 action films that crossed a line few productions dared to approach movies that infused real danger into their frames by using live ammunition, full-power explosives, and authentic weapons capable of doing far more than entertain. Their stories reveal a hidden side of filmmaking where ambition overshadowed caution and where realism demanded a price far higher than expected. Fact 1. Red Scorpion. Set against the vast, sun-scorched deserts of Namibia, Red Scorpion pushed its pursuit of realism far beyond what most productions would dare. Instead of choreographed pyrotechnics designed for safety, the crew relied on authentic military explosives capable of creating enormous shockwaves. These blasts weren't gentle movie pops, they were real detonations, powerful enough to shake equipment and send clouds of sand erupting into the sky. Dolph Lundgren found himself performing in conditions that felt more like live combat than staged action. Several explosive charges were set off only a few paces behind him, with debris kicking forward unpredictably. Crew members later recalled feeling the heat of the blasts even from behind protective barriers. In an era when permission to use such force was loosely enforced, the production's choices created a level of authenticity matched only by its level of danger. Beyond the explosions, long-range firing scenes incorporated actual live rounds hitting distant terrain. While actors were kept away from the firing line, the unpredictable nature of real ammunition added a layer of tension to every setup. Much of what audiences see in the finished film, the violent eruptions, the swirling dust, the harsh recoil of distant rifles, came from effects that were not simulated at all. Fact 2. Rambo 3. As one of the hallmark action epics of the 1,980 seconds, Rambo III embraced an intensity that demanded visceral on-screen impact. To achieve this, the filmmakers incorporated real demolition-grade explosives to create massive eruptions during key battle sequences. These blasts launched dirt and shattered rock into the air with terrifying force, often landing dangerously close to Sylvester Stallone as he performed. Stallone later shared that the production's use of high-yield charges forced him into situations that were far riskier than they appeared on screen. Some explosions went off so close that he was hit by debris mid-shot. Sound designers weren't the only ones capturing realism. Local operators occasionally fired live ammunition into remote terrain to produce authentic echo patterns and chaotic battlefield ambience. Even though no bullets were aimed toward cast members, the presence of real rounds introduced a tension few modern productions would tolerate. What viewers often interpret as heightened drama was, in truth, the result of genuine danger unfolding just out of frame. Fact 3. The Dogs of War. The Dogs of War earned its gritty reputation through methods that blurred the line between filmmaking and real combat. Shot largely in Belize, the production had unusual access to weaponry and explosive materials seldom permitted on a movie set. Many scenes featuring machine gun fire utilized live ammunition fired across distant jungle terrain to capture authentic muzzle flashes and unpredictable impacts. Actors, including Christopher Walken, performed in close proximity to detonations that were far more powerful than standard movie pyrotechnics. Ground charges were set off strong enough to shake nearby trees, and several explosions erupted with such force that they disrupted lighting equipment and dislodged camera mounts. Although safety protocols attempted to keep actors out of direct harm's way, the decision to use real bullets and high-intensity charges created a working environment filled with risk. The gritty, hyper-realistic battlefield energy audiences associate with the film came not from special effects, but from real hardware, real firepower, and real explosions captured as they happened. Fact 4. Braddock. Missing in Action 3. The third film in the Missing in Action series escalated its realism by embracing explosive effects that were anything but controlled. Instead of relying solely on standard pyrotechnics, the crew buried full-power explosive charges throughout the jungle set. When these charges detonated, they ripped through the earth with violent force, sending showers of dirt, branches, and debris into the air, often landing dangerously close to the cast. Chuck Norris performed several scenes while surrounded by these eruptions, and even seasoned stunt professionals admitted that some blasts felt uncomfortably close. Timing mistakes occasionally caused detonations to ignite earlier or with more force than expected, leading to genuine reactions of shock that remained in the final cut. On top of this, certain wide shots incorporated real live rounds fired into distant jungle terrain to create authentic audio reverberation and muzzle flash effects. While the actors were positioned safely away from these zones, the unpredictability of real bullets traveling through dense foliage added an undeniable level of risk to the production. The realism audience's praise today was achieved through choices that edged dangerously close to real combat conditions, pushing both performers and crew into situations that modern safety regulators would never approve. Fact 5. Deadly Prey. A low-budget cult classic, Deadly Prey achieved its intense jungle combat energy by taking risks far beyond what its modest production should have attempted. With limited resources, the filmmakers chose to use live gunfire for certain background shots, firing real ammunition into the forest to capture natural sound and impact patterns that fake rounds couldn't replicate. Lead actor Ted Pryor sprinted, rolled, and fought through areas where real rounds had been discharged just moments earlier. With a small crew and minimal safety oversight, the line between simulation and actual danger became alarmingly thin. Explosive effects were created using improvised charges buried in dirt, which sometimes detonated unpredictably and sprayed debris in all directions. Because the film was shot on a tight schedule with little room for error, many scenes were filmed in a single take, even when explosions erupted closer than intended. These real moments of panic and adrenaline-infused movement helped define the movie's raw visual style. But behind that rawness was an environment where one misfire or mistimed blast could have resulted in serious consequences. Fact 6. The Wild Geese. In The Wild Geese, the pursuit of authenticity took the production into the realm of genuine battlefield conditions. Filmed in South Africa with access to military-grade equipment, the movie incorporated powerful, real explosives designed to mimic the destructive impact of grenades and artillery shells. These detonations were so forceful that they sent shockwaves through the ground and produced towering plumes of dirt and smoke. Actors like Richard Burton and Roger Moore stood remarkably close to these blasts, relying on the precision of the effects team to keep them safe. In several sequences, the concussive force of the explosions startled both stunt performers and animals on set, causing unpredictable reactions that made each take feel like controlled chaos. Some background aerial shots also featured live machine gun fire aimed at distant terrain to capture the natural patterns of muzzle flashes and impact bursts. Although the bullets were fired far from the cast, their presence contributed to an atmosphere where danger felt tangibly real. The film's stark battlefield realism didn't come from special effects artistry alone. It was carved directly from the risks the production embraced to give viewers the closest thing to actual combat ever put on screen. Fact 7. The Beast of War. Shot in rugged desert terrain meant to evoke the harsh landscapes of Afghanistan, the Beast of War pursued realism with a commitment that bordered on dangerous. To simulate the fury of tank combat, the production relied on high-powered, military-grade explosive charges. These blasts were so strong that they rattled the real armored vehicle used during filming, creating shockwaves that shook both ground and equipment. Actors often delivered their performances just moments before or after these detonations ripped through the earth, forcing them to work in conditions that felt unsettlingly close to real warfare. Crew members later recounted how the concussive force could be felt from great distances and how the vibrations from each explosion reverberated through their bodies. Adding to this intensity, some long-distance shots were rumored to include live rounds fired into empty desert areas. Though performers were not positioned near the firing line, the presence of actual bullets created an unpredictability that hung over the set like a shadow. What viewers interpret as gritty realism came not from clever sound design or visual tricks, but from genuine blasts and real firepower captured on camera. Fact 8. Platoon. Oliver Stone's Platoon is celebrated for its harrowing authenticity, and a major part of that realism came from the production's use of true combat-style explosives. Stone, a Vietnam War veteran, wanted the battlefield sequences to feel as chaotic and dangerous as the conflict he remembered. As a result, detonations were placed extremely close to actors, shooting flames, dirt, and shrapnel-like debris into the air. Charlie Sheen, Willem Dafoe, and the rest of the cast often had to react to explosions that erupted only feet away. Many of their expressions of fear were not scripted, they were real responses to blasts powerful enough to be felt in their chests. During nighttime scenes, the production also used live tracer ammunition, firing glowing rounds into distant trees to capture their characteristic arcs, lighting up the jungle. Even though these bullets were aimed away from the cast, tracer rounds are notoriously unpredictable, especially in forests where they can ricochet off branches or rocks. The result is a film whose realism has become legendary, but that realism was paid for with genuine risk on set. Fact 9. The Border. Though The Border is not typically remembered as an explosive action movie, its production harbored some surprisingly dangerous decisions. To portray the violent clashes near the U.S.-Mexico border, the filmmakers buried real explosive charges beneath the desert sand. When triggered, these blasts produced towering eruptions of dust and debris, engulfing actors such as Jack Nicholson in clouds of grit and smoke. Some of the charges detonated with more power than intended, creating shockwaves that rippled across the set. Crew members recalled moments when even standing behind designated safety lines didn't fully protect them from flying debris. The film's grounded approach to action made these sequences appear understated, but behind the camera they were anything but. The production also used real gunfire during certain long-range shots, firing live rounds at distant metal targets to generate authentic sparks and impact noise. Although safety protocols kept the cast away from these firing zones, the use of live ammunition introduced risks that could have escalated quickly under the wrong conditions. In the final film, these moments appear raw and unsettling precisely because they weren't staged with ordinary movie effects. They were created with real blasts, real bullets, and real danger. Fact 10. The Siege of Firebase Gloria. Filmed in the Philippines under demanding conditions, The Siege of Firebase Gloria leaned heavily on realism that pushed the limits of on-set safety. To capture the violent chaos of war, the crew planted true high-yield explosive charges throughout the Firebase set. When ignited, these blasts hurled dirt, smoke, and debris upward with startling force, powerful enough that actors felt the ground shake beneath them. R. Lee Ermey's presence brought authenticity, but also encouraged an intensity that placed performers shockingly close to detonations. Several explosions erupted so near the cast that dust and fragments rained over them mid-scene. These were not carefully diminished movie fireworks. They were explosive loads designed to mirror battlefield artillery, and they created shockwaves felt across the set. Compounding the danger, certain wide shots incorporated real machine gun fire into distant terrain to enhance the ambient sound and muzzle flash realism. Though aimed far from the cast and crew, the decision to use actual bullets introduced a level of risk no modern production would approve. What audiences see as gritty, immersive combat was built from effects that were as close to real warfare as filmmaking could get, an approach that gave the film its raw power, but also exposed everyone involved to significant danger. Fact 11. The Iron Triangle. Another Vietnam War-themed project filmed in the jungles of the Philippines, the Iron Triangle took a bold approach to practical effects. The crew embedded military-grade explosive charges into the forest floor, producing violent eruptions of dirt and flame meant to replicate the unpredictability of jungle warfare. These blasts were intense enough to scorch nearby foliage and send clumps of earth flying in chaotic arcs. Actors performed mere feet from these detonations, sometimes without knowing the exact timing to preserve the realism of their reactions. Crew members later admitted that a few charges ignited earlier than planned, startling actors and showering them with debris. The forest, dense and uneven, made every explosion more unpredictable and more dangerous. For nighttime battle sequences, the production escalated its commitment to realism with live tracer rounds fired through the trees. The glowing streaks seen on camera were actual bullets carving through the darkness, not post-production effects. Though directed away from cast members, tracer ammunition is volatile by nature, especially in a jungle environment where ricochets can behave erratically. These choices created an atmosphere that felt shockingly authentic, but they also transformed the set into a place where each take carried the risk of real injury. Fact 12. The Expendables 2. Despite being a modern blockbuster with access to cutting-edge digital effects, The Expendables 2 became infamous for embracing full-power practical explosions. The production rigged boats, bridges, and vehicles with charges strong enough to obliterate full structures in one blast. These weren't weakened effects for camera. They were large-scale detonations capable of inflicting serious harm if mistimed. During the high-adrenaline river assault sequence, stunt performers were placed dangerously near these explosive setups. Several cameras were damaged by the sheer intensity of the water pressure and debris created by the blasts. Tragically, the commitment to realism led to a fatal on-set accident when a boat wired with explosives malfunctioned, resulting in the death of one stuntman and severe injury to another. The film also relied on real blank-firing heavy weapons, generating recoil and muzzle flashes almost indistinguishable from live-fire footage. While not loaded with bullets, the raw force of these weapons created an environment where a small mistake could have devastating consequences. What was meant to be a triumphant celebration of old-school action heroes became a sobering reminder of the risks involved when a production chooses physical effects over digital safety nets. Fact 13. The Killing Fields. Though The Killing Fields is celebrated as a historical drama, the production's commitment to authenticity drove it into deeply hazardous territory. Filmed in Thailand, the crew used true military-level explosive charges to recreate scenes depicting Khmer Rouge attacks. These detonations were anything but controlled. Some blew apart entire wooden structures, while others sent shockwaves powerful enough to ripple through the ground and shake equipment long after the blast had cleared. Actors Sam Waterston and Hang S. Ngor performed dangerously close to these eruptions, often reacting not to staged cues, but to the genuine fear triggered by blasts that detonated harder than expected. Dust clouds, debris, and shockwaves enveloped them in moments that felt frighteningly real, not because of superior acting, but because the danger itself was real. Adding to the authenticity and the risk were sequences that used live tracer rounds fired across large open fields. These glowing bullets were not post-production effects. They were real rounds launched into the night sky, crackling through the air with unpredictable trajectories. Even though fired away from cast and crew, the possibility of ricochets in such vast terrain added a silent but constant tension to the shoot. What viewers praise as harrowing realism was the direct result of choices that exposed the entire production to risks few understand, and even fewer would ever attempt today. Fact 14. The Wind and the Lion. Adventure and spectacle define The Wind and the Lion. But behind the sweeping desert battles was a production grounded in genuine danger. Filming in Spain and Morocco, the team employed military-grade explosive charges powerful enough to send towering plumes of sand bursting skyward. These charges were placed near riders, horses, and actors in an environment where a single, unpredictable movement could turn deadly. Sean Connery and numerous stunt performers rode through fields where explosives detonated only seconds apart. The blasts startled horses, sending them veering off course and making each take feel precariously unpredictable. Dirt, dust, and smoke filled the air as cavalry charges thundered past explosions that were far stronger than typical cinematic pyrotechnics. For authenticity, the film also used live black powder cannon charges, producing real recoil and muzzle flash effects. These powerful discharges behaved more like historical artillery than movie props, amplifying both the realism and the danger of every scene. The breathtaking visuals audiences still admire were forged through decisions that pushed the limits of safety, creating a film that looks undeniably authentic, but at a cost few productions would accept today. Fact 15. Salvador. Oliver Stone's unflinching portrayal of Civil War chaos in Salvador was achieved by methods that mirrored the brutality depicted on screen. Filmed in Mexico, the production relied heavily on full-strength explosive charges to simulate urban warfare. These blasts shattered windows, tore apart set structures, and hurled debris through the air with frightening force, often engulfing actors James Woods and James Belushi in clouds of dust and smoke. Timing errors occasionally caused detonations to erupt earlier than expected, catching actors mid-motion and producing reactions of genuine fear. The film's street battle scenes pulse with chaotic realism because the danger unfolding around the cast was genuine. Elevating the risk further, nighttime sequences utilized live tracer ammunition fired over rooftops and into distant terrain. The glowing arcs streaking through the darkness were not optical effects, they were real rounds with the potential to ricochet unpredictably in the dense urban environment. The cast performed only steps away from areas where bullets were slicing through the night. The film's visceral, documentary-like intensity came from embracing methods that crossed into real danger, making Salvador one of Stone's most perilous productions and one of cinema's rawest depictions of modern conflict. Bonus fact: the Battle of Algiers. Long before modern action filmmaking embraced practical chaos, the Battle of Algiers shattered boundaries by staging scenes with an intensity so raw that many audiences mistook the film for real documentary footage. Shot entirely on location in the crowded streets of Algiers, the production relied on authentic, high-strength explosive charges to recreate bombings and street attacks from the Algerian War. These weren't toned-down pyrotechnics, they were powerful detonations capable of blowing apart storefronts, shattering windows, and sending debris flying across narrow alleyways filled with actors and extras. Director Gillo Pontecorvo worked closely with former revolutionaries who insisted that only real explosive force could convey the brutality of urban conflict. As a result, cast members were often placed within alarming proximity to blasts that fractured the air with thunderous concussions. Many of the reactions captured on screen, panic, scrambling for cover, stunned silence, were not rehearsed performances, but genuine responses to the violence of the explosion itself. To deepen the realism further, several sequences incorporated real gunfire aimed into distant, open sectors of the city to capture the authentic echo and rhythm of shots bouncing between stone buildings. The sonic texture audiences hear today is not a sound effect, it's the echo of real bullets cracking through the air. The authenticity was so intense that multiple governments later used the film as a training tool, citing its frightening accuracy in depicting guerrilla warfare. Yet the visceral realism came at a significant cost. The crew and performers worked in an environment where a single miscalculation could have caused severe injury. The Battle of Algiers remains a towering cinematic achievement not just for its storytelling, but for the extreme, often perilous methods used to bring its harrowing imagery to life. What you've just seen is a hidden side of action cinema that few viewers ever learn about a world where explosions weren't props, bullets weren't blanks, and the danger unfolding on screen was terrifyingly real. These 15 films blurred the line between performance and survival, capturing raw, unforgettable moments by pushing their casts and crews into situations no modern production would dare attempt. If this deep dive changed the way you look at action movies, let us know which film surprised you the most in the comments below. And if you know another title with an unbelievable behind-the-scenes story, tell us your suggestion might be the focus of our next episode. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the shocking truths, hidden histories, and dangerous secrets behind the world's most explosive films. This is Action Undone, where the stories behind the action hit even